A warm welcome back to the channel. My name is Tom and you're watching youtube.com/getnuanced. And in this video today, linked below, I'll include the articles to where you can further get into the nitty-gritty. I'm going to be very vague and as broad as possible because I want to talk about ideas that I think are not going to be served best if we are getting into the minutia, which I think a lot of the minutia, as I'm about to qualify, will be rather unnecessary when it comes to understanding the overarching point that I'm going to be trying to make in this video. So the link will be below, but this video, as the title obviously will show you, is about the fact that there are now reports out, and they've been out for the last couple of days, but now they're getting into more substantive details that could verify whether this for sure, because obviously even the worst among us, they deserve their day in court. We do live in what is theoretically a constitutional republic, and I think even the worst among us should be adjudicated. They should have a chance to have a court in a trial and with their peers, all that good stuff. But the reality is we really do have a two-tiered justice system, one for the powerful and well-connected, and one for the rest of us who are neither of the two that I mentioned just before. And that really is just magnified and exemplified in the fact that there is now overwhelming evidence that a handful of U.S. senators who were briefed privately and given information weeks in advance of the public about what was going on with what was then the coronavirus and then is now really a global pandemic. And they had time ahead where they were briefed by people who had the intelligence in the government on these matters, and then none of them, instead of deciding to bring this to the public and actually fill people in where they could then best keep themselves safe and prepare accordingly, instead, no, they decided to rub their hands together and think, how can I use this now as an opportunity to gain from the impending crisis? Because we have a bunch of people in our government that are completely self-interested. They will feign altruism and are good at speaking and talking in front of a camera where they'll, feign their insincerity. But the reality is a lot of these guys are cutthroats, and gals are cutthroat, and they are in it for themselves and the special interests that finance and allow them to have such positions of power. I feel like at this point that should be clearly evident, as with the information that they had, knowing what I just said, they decided to talk with their financial backers and the wealthy people in their states and where they represent, and tell them ahead of time and use the information to accordingly allegedly insider trade, which is having information about events before they will happen from inside sources, and then using that information to gain from the system, the stock market, and make a profit from it. And their desire for profits, these handful of people, which there's a handful of them. I shouldn't even bother naming them. They'll be in the article below. And I don't even think at this point, their names really matter. These people are beyond, and as you can see over here, the cats are here right now doing what they're doing best. But ignoring them, I think the serious topic here is that they are using these information and their positions to enrich themselves and to look out for their own best interest, while the reality is these are supposed to be public servants. Public servants isn't just a word that we use or a title or an accolade. It's supposed to mean something. And the fact that we're in this situation right now, I think, should be a good chance for everybody to pause for a moment. I'm sure there's plenty of reasons to, try to distract yourself. There's a lot of obligations that people have, basic necessities that they have to commit to, and obligations including family, their job, all that other stuff, which makes it very easy to distract us, along with all the entertainment and how the content that we're digesting is increasingly shortening our attention spans. I think all of that being said, it's very understandable if you haven't yet, but now that we're in a time where we can self-reflect and also look at how the current state of affairs are, it's good to ask ourselves, how did we get to this point? And of course, the virus itself isn't the fault of human actors. Obviously, we couldn't have predicted, we could have predicted, but we couldn't have prevented this from occurring. We could have taken measures, and those measures were not taken due to the greed and the apathy of the state and the people in the state right now. And that's why we're in the mess that we're in. And obviously, the coronavirus itself came from Wuhan, China. That just goes without saying. And the Chinese government definitely originally tried to hide and cover up information. They're probably lying about their counts. There's evidence that 21 million phones were shut off in China in the last few months since the outbreak of this virus. And from what I've heard, you need a phone in order to function in that country. And they definitely have done a lot of things that deserve and should have criticism to them. But with all that being said, that doesn't have anything to do neither here nor there with the fact that the US government has completely botched what the response was. And you can only have to contrast this with South Korea. I'm actually South Korean. I was born in Seoul. How they received the same confirmed first test the day that we did, and the difference was they took measures that were in the best interest of the public. And for whatever faults their government has, as no government is free from criticism, in my belief, and no person is free from that criticism either, especially those in positions of power. If anything, they are the most accountable and deserve the most criticism, as their actions don't just affect them or their families, as they might think that they do in some delusional case, but affect all of us, the people of the countries that they preside and have power over. And with that being said, these senators, these snakes, this is a den of snakes right here. And it really reminds me of the old Roman Senate, which in a lot of ways the US Senate was based off of. The word Senate actually is from the word wise man or old man, and the Roman Senate used to consist of a body of the elderly rich aristocrats, the male aristocrats who controlled the city of Rome and occupied all of its political positions since they ousted the last king of Rome, which was Tarquin the Proud. And as a lot of people like to compare Rome and America, even our founders liken some of their achievements to that of the Roman historical forefathers. I think that in the same ways that there was corruption in Rome, there was also corruption here, and I think corruption in many governments across the world. But as someone in America, I think in particular, and as I assume most people watching this are Americans as well, I think that it is very pertinent for us to analyze what is going on and be aware of what these people that we've entrusted, voted for, many of us, or maybe we weren't aware of what they were going to do, but these people are supposed to be accountable. And I think we need to start exercising our own forms of public pressure. Not saying anything violent, but, making our voices heard, using our freedom of speech and the freedom of the press, even though it seems like it might be being clamped down on, whether you're on the left or the right. And I think that transcending the partisan boundaries that divide people and maybe, holding everybody, not just if they have a D or an R in front of their name and depending on what your political affiliation is. I think we should have rules which everyone should have to follow, including those in positions of power. And I think that the fact that these insider tradings were even a possibility, let alone actively being done, and there's proof that in the past they were being done as well, as this isn't just endemic to Trump's particular administration. A lot of people like to think Trump is the source of all problems. The reality is he's a symptom, and I'd say in large part his election was largely thanks due to Obama's presidency, which was very corporatist. And I think since we've had presidents such as, I'd say post JFK, even JFK to an extent, I'd say a lot of these guys have definitely not lived up to the standards that we should have when it comes to leaders that are responsible, compassionate, and are trying to propose solutions that improve the livelihood of not just the public, but the state, obviously, and the people, and their ability to long-term have a stable circumstance. And I think that the problem is here that many people, including these senators, are short-sighted. And I think we need to start looking at things in the long term and broadening our view of the world and not just thinking about what's going to happen in the immediate future. Long term, I believe that this virus isn't going to lead to the collapse of society, but it should be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and this camel should be the camel of reform, metaphorically speaking. I think we are past the point where we need to start thinking in terms of what we can do policy-wise, radical changes, such as we need I think, a universal healthcare system, one which doesn't put profits above the health of the people. And we need to start stamping out corruption, actually enforcing the anti-corruption and anti-monopoly laws, not allowing corporations to just pretty much control and have everything in the country, including the people and the public safety, being for sale depending on who has the resources and the ears of whoever has the decision at the time. And obviously, that's going to require more than just what someone on YouTube can talk about who is currently being bit by their cat, who's right over here. Hello, kitty. But hopefully in future videos we can talk more about all this stuff, and I think that we will, but I think that the punishment for such an action, I think we need definitive punitive measures. If you are caught insider trading, I believe you deserve the death penalty. This is traitorous. This is completely inappropriate behavior, especially when you know what's about to happen. This is a public health crisis. That information could save people's lives, and you're deciding to use the information to benefit and profit from a really tragic event and conceal the information, have it basically only be available to people who are paying you and giving you like some sort of kickback. These people need to leave. Anyone who does anything like that, anyone who thinks like that, needs to go, and they need to be elected out of office, and they need to be locked up. And honestly, if we were really sensible, we'd be bringing back the guillotine, because these people are completely not only ignorant and stupid and corrupt, their selfish behavior is going to lead to the ultimate destruction of the United States. And as somebody who I'm American, I care about the country, I grew up here, I'd like to see this country become a better country. I think the sooner we start getting our priorities straight and starting to elect people that actually give a damn, who will have a conscientious foreign policy that will create allies and dissuade enemies from attacking us, and is actually self-aware, just someone who actually is able to understand the predicament that we're in and understand that things have to change, and these changes won't be easy, and they're going to require all of us to form a national consciousness that is not just about posting videos or replying and interacting in a forum, as useful as those are, as much as I will get involved and do as much as I can, but it's going to require more than that. And I'd be looking forward to having a discussion for anyone who thinks that they see eye to eye with me and they'd like to have a dialogue. And I think that we need to start, organizing and thinking about ways where we can actually bring in changes that will start to hopefully turn the clock back in all the best ways. And then, we can abandon the vestiges. We don't have to repeat the same mistakes of the past, but I think at the same time, there is value in looking to the past in other societies. And if you look, for example, really quick, just at the ultimate fate of Rome, since I mentioned it before, the Eastern Roman Empire, or the part of the Roman East that survived the fall of Rome, ended up surviving for an additional 1,000 years, but ultimately ended up falling too in 1453. And prior to that, the state really lost all of its momentum when the private interests, the landed elite, the dunatoi, these powerful land-owning magnates, were able to essentially capture the state and the state apparatus, and anyone who was trying to stand against them was unfortunately stamped out, and any reforms that were trying to be enacted were stamped out until they were the ones in charge of the rule of law, and they used the rule of law to undermine the very stability of the state and the sovereignty of the state as well. And I think that should be some real food for thought as we have now corporations and the political class, which seems to be repeating the same mistakes that the Eastern Roman or Byzantine political class made, and the private interests there, which obviously, since the state doesn't exist, there's no state for them to pilfer anymore, and they ultimately destroy themselves with their greed. Hopefully we do not repeat that same mistake here. We should be able to learn from the past, and hopefully those who were engaged in insider trading will be held accountable. But for now, we'll have to see. I doubt it. I think ultimately things are going to need to get, unfortunately, a lot more stressful and worse politically for people to really snap out of it. There seems to be a psychosis that we're all collectively as a society in, where we are just completely unaware and disinterested, and also kind of unable to see, like nihilistic, where that we could really use the state as a tool for change, and if the right people were in charge who had the right vision and were actually interested in the needs of people, not just those who are at the very top. I think that these are things that, whether you're on the left or the right politically, as I consider myself somewhere in the center, I think these ideas are going to increasingly gain popularity, and I think that we're going to need to consider all of them and have all these options on the table, discuss, debate them, and then figure out someone who can best represent them and get them into office. As you can see with the cat, she's kind of interrupting in the video, But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video I make real soon. Hopefully this was interesting food for thought. My name is Tom, and you were watching youtube.com/getnuance. I'll catch you guys next video I make real soon. For now, peace out.